You're listening to the Dibbly-Dobbly Podcast. Remember to like, share, comment, subscribe, and click the bell to make sure you get the latest episodes of the podcast. Be sure to like and share our Facebook page as well. Hi everyone, and welcome to the Dibbly-Dobbly Podcast. On today's episode of the podcast, we review an unbelievable test match between India and England and preview the fourth test match from Ahmedabad. It's the Dibbly-Dobbly Podcast, and let's get started. Let's recap the scores from the third test match between India and England from Ahmedabad. England batted first and made 112 all out. Zach Crawley top scored with 53. Axar Patel was the star bowler for India, taking 6 for 38. India in reply in their first innings, all out for 145. Rohit Sharma top scored with 66. Joe Root was the best of the England bowlers, taking 5 for 8. England in their second innings, all out for 81. Ben Stokes was the top scorer with 25. Axar Patel, once again, the star bowler for India, taking 5 for 32. India needed 49 to win. They chased the runs down easily, finishing none for 49, winning the test match by 10 wickets and taking a 2-1 series lead. And Axar Patel was named man of the match for his 11-wicket haul. How can you describe this test match? Well, to use the great Bill Laurie's catchphrase, it's all happening. It was certainly all happening at Ahmedabad. Wickets falling left, right and centre. Absolute chaos over the 2 days of this short test match. Someone put the fast forward button on and forgot to take their finger off the button for the whole match. There's been plenty of talk about the pitch, but we will go into further discussion about the pitch a bit later on in the podcast. What were some of the key factors that decided this match? Well, England's batting in the first innings cost them dearly, being bowled out for 112 and India being bowled out for 145, which saw India get a crucial first innings lead, of 33 runs. Then England managed to bounce back and take those wickets, but England couldn't score the runs and get a big lead in the second innings as the pitch got worse to bat on. That was the deciding factor in this test match, which led India to win by 10 wickets. Let's have a look at these mind-boggling stats from this third test match between India and England. 842, the number of balls bowled in the third test in 138.4 overs. This is the 7th shortest completed test match ever and the shortest since 1935. 387, the number of runs scored in the match, the lowest in a test in Asia, beating the previous low of 422 in Australia's win over Pakistan in 2002 at Sharjah. 0, the number of balls bowled by pace bowlers in the third and fourth innings of the match. The only time this happened in a completed match was the Bangladesh and West Indies test in Dhaka back in 2018. James Anderson and Stuart Broad went wicketless in this test match. It's the first time in 120 test matches that they've gone wicketless. 81, the number of runs England scored in their second innings, the second lowest completed innings in test matches against India. South Africa's score of 79 in 2015 is the lowest. 193, the number of runs England scored in the match, their second lowest match aggregate in a test since 1904. They were bowled out for 93 and 82 against New Zealand in Christchurch in 1984. Ravi Ashwin became the second fastest to 400 test wickets. He did it in 77 matches. The quickest is Matai Muralitharan. He reached the milestone faster than Ashwin in 72 matches. Joe Root conceded 8 runs in his 5-wicket haul in India's first innings, the cheapest 5-wicket haul by a spin bowler in Test history, beating Tim May's 5 for 9 against the West Indies in 1993. 10 seam bowlers have taken a 5-wicket haul and conceded 8 runs or less. Josh Hazlewood is one of them, taking 5 for 8 against India in the Adelaide Test match. And Australia's Ernie Toshak, who took 5 for 2 versus India in 1947, is the all-time record. 38, the number of years since an England captain took a 5-wicket haul in a test match. Bob Willis was the last to take a 5-wicket haul as England captain. He did that against New Zealand in 1983. 70, the number of runs Axar Patel conceded in taking 11 wickets in the match, the cheapest 10-wicket haul by an Indian bowler. The cheapest of all time is Australia's Bert Ironmonger's 11 for 24 against South Africa in 1932. The number of days needed for a result, the 22nd instance of a 2-day test match. The last time England lost inside 2 days in a test match was against Australia at Trent Bridge in 1921. 79.2 overs, the number of overs bowled by India in this test, the second fewest they've bowled to take 20 wickets in a test match. The record is 66.3 overs in Afghanistan's maiden test match in 2019. And Ravi Ashwin has now dismissed Ben Stokes for 11 times in Test cricket. 9 of those dismissals have come in India. So those are all the mind-boggling stats from this unbelievable Test match in Ahmedabad. Let's have a look at the team's performances during this third Test match. Let's have a look at how India performed in this third Test match. We'll start with their batsmen. Rohit Sharma, 66 and 25, not out. Gill, 11 and 15, not out. Pujara, 0. Kohli, 27. Rahane, 7. Pant, 1. Ashwin, 17. That's how the batsmen performed. Let's have a look at the bowlers. Ashwin took 7 wickets for the match. Sunder took 1. Patel took 11. Ishant Sharma took 1. And Bumrah didn't take any wickets for the match. Another clinical performance from India yet again in this third Test match. Putting the argument aside about the pitch and was it good enough or was it poor, regardless of that, India are just better in these conditions than England, really. Being familiar with these conditions, obviously, they're better in these conditions, and that's why they've won by 10 wickets in this Test match. What were some of the standout performances for me for India in this match? Well, I was impressed with Rohit Sharma. He made batting look easy on this pitch. Probably him and Zach Crawley were the only two that obviously made 50s in the match, but also made batting look easy at times compared to everyone else. So Rohit Sharma was a key for India, especially in that first innings where they got bowled out for 145. England getting bowled out for 112. His innings got India that first innings lead of 33, and that was crucial in this match, which was the deciding factor, really, because England had to get those 33 runs to take the lead back. They did do that, but they got bowled out for 81. So for England, obviously they couldn't get enough runs to get the lead in the second innings, I should say, and win this Test match. But for India, they managed to bowl them out cheaply. They chased down the 49 runs for the target, and they chased them down easily, winning by 10 wickets. I thought the spin bowlers again from India, they were just too good again. Axar Patel impressed, taking 11 wickets. Unbelievable start to his Test career. Ravi Ashwin reaching 400 Test wickets, becoming the second fastest behind Murali Dhuran to reach the milestone. What a bowler he is. He had another great match again. So overall, a clinical performance from the Indian team compared to England. I think after the game, Virat Kohli said, well, it's good to get the win, obviously, but the batsmen batted poorly. And probably, was that down to the pitch or was that down to batsmen's application? Kohli said it was down to both sides' batsmen not applying themselves to the surface. And as I said before, people have different opinions on the pitch. India are saying it's a good pitch. It was an okay pitch, didn't have any demons in it, whereas England are saying, well, the pitch was a bit difficult. And then you have other people saying, well, it wasn't a good pitch, it was a poor pitch. Other people are saying it's a good pitch, what's the problem? So putting that to one side, regardless of the pitch, India are just far better in these conditions than England, and they've shown that. That's why it's very hard to go to India to try and beat them at home, because it's a hard job, because they just always win in these conditions, and we've seen that in this series against England. So besides from their batting collapse in India, obviously both batting units had tough Test matches, obviously on this pitch that got worse and worse as the game progressed, really. It was deteriorating quite quickly. And both batting units had a difficult time of it. But for India, they just dominated, really. They just never let England back into the game. England did come back into the game where they bowled India out for 145, but it was how India bounced back and got the wickets and bowled England out for 81, and they chased down 49 runs and won the match. So for India, it's a great victory for them. But in saying that, was it down to the pitch or was it down to batsman error? That's the question there in terms of their batting collapse, and same with the England side as well. But putting that to one side, India, they're just too strong. As I said before, they're just too strong. And it doesn't surprise me that they get the job done in these difficult conditions because they're so used to these conditions that are so foreign to England. They're not used to this at home in England. A great performance from them overall. Excuse me, going into the fourth test match, they're going to be very hard to beat. And India are on track to win this series because it's going that way at the moment. Because watching this test match, even though it lasted 2 days, you can just see India are just going to win this series easily, really. After the first test match in Chennai, where they lost, they've bounced back superbly. And ever since then, they haven't really took their foot off the gas. They've really kept their foot on the gas. They've gone on the attack. They've made England pay. And they've really dominated the last 2 test matches. So for me, it's going to be very hard for England to try and beat India in the last test match of this series, because what we do know is that this last test match in Ahmedabad is going to be played at the same venue, but this time it's going to be a day test, not a day-night test. So it'll be interesting to see how the pitch plays in that day test, really. But overall, great performance again from India, a very convincing victory, and they're going to be hard to beat, and they're on track to probably win the series, and obviously on track to qualify for that World Test Championship final against New Zealand at Lords later on this year. Let's have a look at England and how they performed in this third Test match. We'll start with their batsman Crawley, 53 and 0, Sibley 0 and 7, Bairstow got out for a pair, Joe Root 17 and 19, Stokes 6 and 25, Pope 1 and 12, Folkes 12 and 8. So that's how the batsmen performed for England in this test match. Let's have a look at the bowlers. Joe Root took 5 wickets for the match. Ben Stokes didn't take any wickets for the match. Jofra Archer took only 1 wicket for the match. Jack Leach took 4 wickets for the match. No wickets to Stuart Broad or James Anderson. That's how England and their bowlers and batsmen performed in this test match. With England, yet again, putting the pitch to one side, and England can easily blame the pitch and say, well, it wasn't a great pitch and it finished in 2 days, the test match. But putting that argument and discussion about the pitch to one side, the bottom line is England are just not good in these conditions. They're just terrible. Their players are not used to this kind of foreign conditions that they get in England. I think for England, the problem is with them now is that they can't really seem to adapt to these conditions. They can't really find a way to bat through these tough conditions, and how to bat against Ashwin and Axar Patel and how to combat Indian spinners. They can't really do that at the moment. I think they're going into this test match, this day-night test, it was a good opportunity for England to win this match. They won the toss. They chose to bat first. But if they got a score of 200 plus, maybe 250, they could have won this test match. Because as we saw the test match wore on, it was starting to wear, the pitch was starting to deteriorate, and it was getting harder and harder to bat on. And if England got a score around about 250 plus or something, then they could have won this test match. But they didn't. And I think putting the discussion of the pitch to one side, they got bowled out for 112. And that's what cost them this test match, really. Their batting in the first innings let them down. And That's why they lost this test match by 10 wickets, because of that. So England, yet again, getting bowled out again cheaply in this match, 112 and 81 in the first innings. It's not a good look. It's not a great feeling. But for England, it's just about how do you fight back in these conditions? How do you try and find a way to combat the spin of Ashwin and Patel? Because England know heading into the fourth test match, it's going to be similar conditions again. Maybe the pitch will act slightly different because it's not going to be a day-night test, whereas this one in the third test was, and that's why we saw the game finish in 2 days. So I think for England, they need to go into this fourth test match believing in themselves that they can find a way and get through the tough periods in the match. Because for them, they know they're going to struggle in these conditions. They know India are brilliant in these conditions because they're used to these conditions, whereas England are not. So for me, what England need to do is just to put the third test match aside, because what happened. You can argue every day until you go blue in the face that the pitch was not good enough and it was poor and all that stuff. But at the end of the day, the match is already over. The result's already been finalised. England lost by 10 wickets. You've got to put that aside and you've got to try and focus on this last test match and try and win this last test match. There's no point in, looking back on the past because it's already happened. You can't change it now. So for England, it's just about focusing in this next test match, trying to find a way, as I said before, to get back into this series and try and draw the series if they can. They're not going to win the series now. They can't. They can only draw the series. So if they do that, then it will be a great result for them. But as I said, it's going to be a very difficult chance and very difficult opportunity for them to do that because they're going to come up against similar conditions in the fourth test match on the same pitch in Ahmedabad. Different pitch on the square, of course, but similar conditions up against Ashwin and Patel. Good luck. For England, I think heading into this test match, they planned it around a pink ball test and they started to go away from what you actually need in India, which you need 2 spinners. You can't afford to have 3 quicks. And I was just scratching my head and I was saying, what are they doing? Why are they picking 3 quicks? You need 2 spinners on this pitch. You need 2 spinners in India. And that's where it sort of backfired, really, and Joe Root had to bowl himself. And that's why he got 5 for 8 on this pitch. And then he said in his press conference after the game, well, if I'm getting 5 wickets for 8, then there must be something wrong with the pitch. And he's probably right. But for Joe Root, he's a part-timer. He's not a full-time spinner. Jack Leach is a full-time spinner. Dom Bess is a full-time spinner. But they didn't pick Dom Bess because they don't have the confidence in him, England, to have the consistency and get the job done. The only way Dom Bess is going to get better as a spinner is learning in this last test match in India, in this fourth test match. And that's the only way he's going to learn. If you're going to put him on the sidelines, what's the point of taking him on the tour? You've only played him for the first test. You've left him out for the next 2 test matches. You could have used his services in this test match because it was very difficult to bat on. He would have been effective because as we saw in this test match, it only lasted 2 days. And the ball was doing plenty. The spin bowlers took majority of the wickets. And I think England just need to back him. Yeah, sure, he's going to be inconsistent. He's going to leak runs. But for him to develop as a spin bowler, you need to have him in the side. And that's the only way he'll get better and learn his craft. If you're going to put him on the sidelines, what's that going to do with his confidence? To me, it doesn't show England, Joe Root doesn't have any confidence in Dom Bess to get the job done. Now, he did a very good job. He did an okay job in the first test match. But for me, he could have done a lot more in this test match if he played. He could have helped a lot. But England didn't do that. So I think they need him in for the last test match of the series. I think, take out Stuart Broad maybe. He didn't take any wickets in this match. Rest Stuart Broad. If you're going to continue the rotation policy, you might as well rest Stuart Broad anyway. And include Dom Bess or rest someone. Most of England's squad have gone home, really. I think Chris Woakes has already gone home. Moeen Ali's gone home. Josh Buttler's gone home. So they haven't got anyone else on the sidelines. So for England, for me with this rotation policy with England is, I can understand it. I can understand why they've implemented the system to keep players fresh during this difficult time, these uncertain times that we are facing at the moment. But are they really caring about this series, or they are really caring about the T20 World Cup? To me, it looks like they're caring about more of the T20 World Cup rather than the Test series against India, which I think should come first. Let's be honest, there's 2 T20 World Cups back to back. Later on this year in India, and obviously next year in Australia. So if England don't win this T20 World Cup this year, they've always got the next World Cup in 2022, which is in Australia, to win that. But I think they should be just trying to prioritise Test cricket ahead of T20 cricket. I understand England want to win the T20 World Cup because they just came off winning the World Cup back in 2019. They're on a bit of a roll now. They're one of the favourites. They want to try and win that T20 World Cup. But at the same time, you've got to balance that with Test cricket. I think what's more important, a T20 World Cup or winning a Test series in India? I think winning the Test series in India is more important than the T20 World Cup, to be quite honest with you. And I can understand why the selectors are doing this, but I think they've made a bit of a mess of it. I think when you do this, it's how you do it. It's how you rotate the players. When do you rotate players to take rest? It's how you do it. And I think England, by rotating their players, I think they've done it badly. I think they've picked the wrong time in the series to rest their players. They could have done with a Josh Buttler in this test match. They could have done with a Moeen Ali in this test match. But they've gone home. They've been rested. They could have done their job in this test match and hopefully, get the win for England. Unfortunately, they didn't because they've been sent home, they've been rotated and rested. So for me, for England, the way that England have gone in this series shows a lack of cohesion within the team because players are going in, coming out, going in, coming out because of the rotation policy. That interrupts your cohesion and the consistency within the team. How you expect England to win a test series if players keep going in and out of the squad and the team? It's just not working. So that's why England find themselves in this mess. You can blame the pitch and say, the pitch was poor and all that stuff. At the end of the day, England are just not good enough in these conditions. The rotation policy has probably cost them in this series because it's interrupted that cohesion and consistency, as I said before. And really, they've only got themselves to blame because they're not prioritising Test cricket. They're more focused on winning the T20 World Cup. That's not even till the end of the year. Worry about trying to win this Test series in India. England's performance overall in this match was terrible. The batting was poor again. And the bowling was good, obviously, taking the wickets. Obviously, Joe Root and Jack Leach took most of the wickets as spinners. But besides from that, England have got a lot of work to do to really make something of this series in the last test match. If they draw the series, that's a great result for them. If they don't, well, so be it. You've only got yourselves to blame, really. But in saying that, it's going to be a tough job for England, but let's see what they can do in the 4th test match. As I said at the top of the podcast episode, we were going to discuss the pitch from the 3rd test match in Ahmedabad. Now, it has created some debate on whether or not it was a good or poor pitch. Many people will have different opinions on the pitch. I, for one, thought the pitch wasn't up to test match standard, because if a test match that finishes in 2 days, then there must be something wrong with the surface itself. And Joe Root said, if I took 5 for 8 on this pitch, then there must be something wrong with the surface. In saying that, people are going to agree or disagree on this issue, but you can make your own mind up whether or not the pitch was good or poor. But let's take a look at the ICC pitch rating system. Let's have a go at understanding the pitch rating system, and I will leave a link in the description below to the ICC's pitch monitoring process, which is their rating system, which is available on their website. And you can catch that on their website. So if you want to have a read of it and study up on how the ICC go about rating pitches, then go ahead and make your own mind up whether or not the pitch in Ahmedabad in this third test match was poor or good. You can make your own assessment up on that. But let's go through the ICC's pitch rating system. Well, the ICC will start with their general comments on test match pitches. So this is the ICC's general comments on what they expect from a test match wicket. The objective of a test pitch shall be to allow all the individual skills of the game to be demonstrated by the players at various stages of the match. If anything, the balance of the contest between bat and ball in a test match should slightly favour the bowling team. A pitch should be expected to deteriorate as the match progresses, and as a consequence, the bounce could become more inconsistent and the ball could deviate more off the wearing surface. So that's what the ICC expect from a test match wicket. So that's their general comments there. Now, let's have a look at how the system works in terms of suspending a venue for a poor pitch and various other ratings that they give. So sanctions for pitches and or outfields rated below average, poor or unfit. It is expected that venues that are allocated the responsibility of hosting a match will present the best possible pitch and outfield conditions for that match. If the conditions are such that the match referee has cause to rate the pitch and or outfield below average, poor or unfit, a corresponding number of demerit points will be imposed upon the host venue, as per the table below. So if you have a look at the table, you can see the various ratings and demerit points. Demerit points will remain active for a rolling 5-year period. Where a host venue accumulates a total of 5 or more demerit points, the host venue will have its accreditation to host international matches suspended as follows. 5 points, it will be suspended for up to 12 months. 10 points, it will be suspended up to 24 months. So that's how the demerit point system works. And I wanted to touch on the clarifications from the ICC here. The ICC have some clarifications on test match pitches as well. And I just wanted to touch on one key factor here, one key point. It is acceptable for a pitch to offer some degree of turn on the first day of the match, particularly in the subcontinent, though anything more than occasional unevenness of bounce at this stage of the match is not acceptable. It is expected that a pitch will turn steadily more as the match progresses, and it is recognised that a greater degree of unevenness or bounce may develop. The reason I highlighted that point is that the ICC know themselves that it is acceptable for some degree of turn on the first day. And they say here, particularly in the subcontinent. So they do understand that it's okay for some degree of turn on the first day on a pitch in the subcontinent. The ICC do recognise that. But then they go on to say, it is also to be expected that a pitch will turn steadily more as the match progresses. So meaning, as the match gradually goes on towards days 3, 4, and 5, the pitch will take turn more steadily throughout the whole match. That's what you want in a test match wicket. Did we see this in Ahmedabad because the spinners were taking wickets from pretty much day one? Was that steadily turn? I don't think it was. So we didn't quite see that in this match. So I just wanted to touch on that key point there. I wanted to have a look at the poor rating criteria, because I think this pitch in Ahmedabad will be rated poor, and it does fit the criteria. So I'll have a read through that now. A poor pitch is one that does not allow an even contest between bat and ball, either by favouring the batters too much and not giving the bowlers from either team sufficient opportunity to take wickets, or by favouring the bowlers too much and not giving the batters from either team the opportunity to make runs. If any of the following criteria apply, a pitch may be rated poor. The pitch offers excessive seam movement at any stage of the match. The pitch displays excessive unevenness of bounce for any bowler at any stage of the match. The pitch offers excessive assistance to spin bowlers, especially early in the match. The pitch displays little or no seam movement or turn at any stage of the match, together with no significant bounce or carry, thereby depriving the bowlers of a fair contest between bat and ball. The pitch displays excessive moisture by making its playing characteristics unpredictable, or excessive dryness leading to the surface to deteriorate. So after reading that, this pitch in Ahmedabad does fall under the category and the criteria of a poor rating. One key point that I really picked up in there was the excessive assistance to spin bowlers, especially early in the match. Now, this match ended in 2 days, and you could say that's pretty early in the match. So, for me, I think it will be rated as a poor pitch, I think. I can't see it being rated as a average or below average pitch. I think it will be a poor rating that the ICC will give it, because it does fall under that criteria that the ICC have set. So in going through all of that in terms of the ICC's rating process and putting that to one side for a moment, let's talk about the pitch in general. For me, watching the game, I was excited like everyone else. Wickets were falling everywhere. It was carnage. It was chaos in 2 days. Both teams struggled with the bat. Both bowling attacks cashed in with wickets. For me, I want to see a good contest between bat and ball. And that's what Test cricket's about. It's about testing yourself over 5 days against the best players in the world and the best teams in the world in the toughest conditions. And India is one of the toughest places to tour in the world in terms of cricket, because you have to deal with the spin, the different climate, the weather, all these testing factors. And for me, I just want to see a contest between the bat and the ball. Pretty much a cricket pitch, you want to see a good balance between the bat and the ball. Now, I know in recent years we haven't seen that balance because it's heavily shifted towards the bat, I should say, not the ball. But we have to try and get that back into the middle, get the balance between the two facets of the game, which are so important in the game of cricket. That's batting and bowling. And you need a surface to have a balance between the two. A surface where batsmen can score runs freely and execute their skills, and bowlers can take wickets and execute their skills as well. In recent years, we haven't seen that balance in Test cricket. You usually get served up with a flat concrete road, and both teams score 600 plus, which doesn't make for good cricket. Other pitches, you see the pitch heavily favour the ball, and the batsman can't score runs. So you've got to try and get that balance right. I do feel for groundsmen around the world because it is a tough job in preparing a test match wicket. It's like baking a cake, really. You put the cake in the oven, you leave the cake in the oven too long, it's overcooked. You take the cake out a little bit early, it's a bit underdone. So in preparing a test match surface and pitch, you have to try and find the right balance. You have to try and get it just right. Because if you take it out too early, it's not done. If you leave it in too long, it's going to be overdone. So it's very hard to try and find that balance. I think the groundsman here in Ahmedabad, I don't think he got the preparation right. I didn't think he left the pitch too long in the oven. I think he left it in too long, maybe, or he took it out a little bit too late. He just didn't quite find the balance there, and it happens. It's a hard job being a groundsman because if you produce a bad pitch, then people will criticize you like this, and that's what it's happening right now. So for me, I think everyone would agree that Test cricket's a test, and you want a good surface that offers that balance between the bat and the ball. Not a surface that favours one or the other, because that's just not right. You want a good contest, you want both skills being tested, batsmen and bowlers. And I think in this test match, we saw majority of the wickets being taken by the spinners, and it heavily assisted the spin bowlers, and it does fall under the category of a poor pitch with the rating. So for me as a cricket lover and someone who's passionate about this great game of ours, like many people who are passionate about this game, I think it doesn't matter if you support India or England, but you're a cricket lover in general, you just want to watch good cricket. And for me, towards the end of the test match, I pretty much switched off, really, because I knew who was going to win anyway. It was going to be India who was going to win, because you could see it. It wasn't going to get easier to bat on. It just wasn't, and England had no hope. And that brings me to my next point. Putting all of our previous arguments aside to one side for a moment. At the end of the day, both sides batted on the surface, and as a team, as the two teams who play in the game, you don't have any control on what surface is prepared and given to you. The groundsman has that control. So as a team, you have to play on the surface that is given to you. And England struggled on the surface. They couldn't handle the pressure. They cracked under the pressure. And India are just too good in these conditions, because they're going to dominate in these conditions. So at the end of the day, both teams had to play on the surface, regardless of what people say about the pitch and the criticism that it's copying at the moment. Regardless of that, both teams had to play on the surface. And at the end of the day, India were far too good than England on the surface. And it showed. Now, what does that mean for the fourth test match in Ahmedabad? We got to remember that this third test match was a day-nighter. So it was a pink ball, it was a day-night game. The dew factor, the pink ball with the extra lacquer on the ball, made the ball skid on a bit faster under lights. So that's why probably that caused the collapse of wickets. And both sides had batting collapses because of that. So you've got to factor in those factors. This test match is a day test. It'll be very interesting to see what happens during this test match in Ahmedabad if it's a day game. The fourth test match is going to be a day game with a red ball, so it may react differently. Now, if the ICC give this pitch a poor rating, then the groundsman can't prepare a pitch that is going to be poor for this fourth test match. Otherwise, the stadium may be suspended for up to a year or 2 years, as per what the regulations say. So they can't afford to get it wrong this time. So we have to wait and see what happens in this last test before we make a general judgment on this third test match wicket. But at the end of the day, it's not a great look if it finishes in 2 days. This is not the 1900s or the 1800s where test matches finished in 2 days and finished in even a single day, really, if you go back in time. It's 2021. We've got better preparation methods in terms of preparing wickets, because back then they weren't even covered. They were left to the elements, really. Whereas now you can control how much moisture you put in the pitch and how much, if you're going to put the covers on or not. So you can control that, whereas back then they didn't do that. So that's why test matches finished in 2 days and a day, because you were caught on a sticky wicket. So whereas now the technology is better and we should be better in preparing pitches. Just one final thing before we finish up. The one thing that really makes me upset and really ignores me the most is when home cricket boards, I'm not saying one team does it, I'm saying everyone in world cricket does it, where they ask the groundsman, can you prepare this pitch for us? I just hate that. The groundsman, to me, is not a part of any team. He is his team because he's a groundsman. He prepares the surface. He should be neutral and unbiased. Just because the home cricket board said to him and sent him a memo to say, can you produce a spinning track for us or a seaming track? Okay. The cricket board, or the cricket boards, I should say, should stay out of that side of cricket. You're not experts in preparing cricket wickets. You're cricket administrators. You're a cricket board. Focus on other things that are more important than just sending a memo to a groundsman saying, can you produce this pitch for us because we're going to win. I understand with home advantage and all that, and every team has that right to a home advantage. Of course they do, because you're playing at home. But what I'm trying to say is, stop that influence. Just stop it. Cricket boards should focus on how to improve the game in their country rather than just saying to a groundsman, can you prepare this pitch for us? It's got to stop. Natural home conditions will take over, and naturally, the home conditions will naturally happen, and the home team will naturally win in the end. So you don't really need to do too much to the pitch because it will happen naturally over time during the test match. It will happen naturally. And at the end of the day, let the groundsman choose what he wants to do with the pitch, because he should not be in a position where the home cricket board says to him, you got to prepare this surface, okay? For him, he should be unbiased and he should prepare the pitch that he wants to prepare that has a good contest between the bat and the ball, so both teams can showcase their skills with both bat and ball, and we have a great test match that lasts 5 days. And the players show their skills. I just hate it when cricket boards do that. That just really makes me upset there. The groundsman, he doesn't play for any of the teams, so he should be unbiased, in my opinion. But, that's not going to happen. It may happen, it may change, it may not. I don't think it will, but let's start the discussion, because many of the cricket boards do that. And let the groundsman do his work. That's what he's getting paid for. And he should not be lectured by the cricket board and the cricket authorities by what pitch he should prepare for that test match. It's not up to the cricket boards. It's up to the groundsman. He's getting paid to do that. That's his job, not the cricket boards. I think the cricket boards should just be worrying about how to improve cricket in their home countries, because let's be honest, world cricket at the moment is not in a good place. There are many things that need to be fixed, and the cricket boards should just be worrying about getting along with each other and trying to fix many of the problems faced in world cricket at the moment, because there's a whole heap of problems that need to be sorted out and fixed. Too many to list in this podcast, but we'll save that for another day and another podcast episode. But to finish up, at the end of the day, I think all cricket lovers who love this great game of ours, who are passionate about this great game, who love Test cricket because it's the pinnacle of cricket, the history, the tradition. That's why I fell in love with cricket, because of Test cricket, because I love that tradition. I love that history, and I like that, because that's how the game, that's the game of cricket. That's our history, and we've got to do everything we can to preserve it. At the end of the day, all I want to see is some great Test cricket. And I think everyone in the world, regardless of who you support, India, England, Australia, New Zealand, South Africa, West Indies, whoever, I think everybody will agree that you want to see great Test cricket. And I hope we do. And I hope for this last Test match in Ahmedabad, we get a great finish to this great rivalry between India and England, because these two teams are very good teams. And this rivalry is a very good rivalry. It's been there for a long time. So let's hope we get a good finish to a good series in this series between India and England. Let's hope we get a finish. Let's hope we get a thrilling test match in this last test. Let's hope England bounce back or something, or India produce another masterclass or something. But let's get a contest between the bat and the ball, and let's get the pitch right. Because if we do that, then Test cricket will be stronger than ever before. What can we expect from the fourth Test match in Ahmedabad? Well, let's hope we get a pitch that can last more than 2 days for this last test of the series. India will be hard to beat and have lots of momentum heading into the final Test match. In these conditions, India are always hard to beat and are favourites to win this final Test. For India, a win or a draw will see them qualify for the World Test Championship final against New Zealand at Lord's, so there's plenty at stake. For England, it's going to be a hard task to win this final Test, but they need to show some fight and put the last Test match behind them and focus on this final Test. Conditions will be similar for this final Test, but England need to find a way in these conditions. But let's hope we have a good Test match to win the series. Well, that's the end of the innings to close the play for this episode of the podcast. Be sure to subscribe and click the bell to get the latest episodes of the podcast. And like and share our Facebook page. Until next time, keep safe and bye for now.